Yesterday, I said that we had identified 3 priorities for the year. One, always foremost for this organization, is getting an effective, transparent price on carbon passed, carbon fee and dividend, and that where there were places where there were existing organizations that were working on a state basis, we would look to support them to have that help us work towards getting fee and dividend passed. That also, our second purpose, to empower people to have breakthroughs in their personal and political power, that we need to go deeper this year. And I want to get to that in just a little bit. And then the third thing was how important it is that the national conference is this year. You know, if you look at where we all were yesterday morning and where we are now, this is remarkable, right? There are certain things that can only happen when we get together. And I don't know how you explain that magic, but there is something that happens when we get together. And this year in particular, having a chance to make a big statement, this is my country, this is my government, this is my democracy, it's important that we do that again this upcoming year. And then I just want to say one thing about Bruce's presentation. I think Bruce's presentation about conservative outreach really got to something that we all need to be working on. And that is just being more thoughtful people. You know, I'm convinced that most of us think other people have opinions and points of view. And we all see the world exactly as it is. You know, we think our way of seeing it is the way it is, and other people have points of view. And I think what Bruce challenged all of us is to constantly challenge our own assumptions. And to, you know, I just don't think we can do the work we do without we challenge our own assumptions of what we know to be the case. You know, I know it's obvious that everybody else needs to be right all the time, but that's about you and I also. And I think that you really challenged us very, very powerfully with that, so thank you for that, Bruce. That was remarkable. Is Mark Tabbert back in the room? Okay, good. In December, Mark Tabbert gave me this book, The Road to Character by David Brooks, and I want to read just a little bit of the introduction. He says, recently I've been thinking about the difference between resume virtues and eulogy virtues. The resume virtues are the ones you list on your resume, the skills that you bring to the job market, that you contribute to external success. The eulogy virtues are the deeper. They're the virtues that get talked about at your funeral, the ones that exist at the core of your being, whether you are kind, brave, honest, or faithful. What kind of relationships have you formed? Most of us would say that the eulogy virtues are more important than the resume virtues. But I confess, for long stretches of my life, I've spent more time thinking about the latter more than the former. Our education system is certainly oriented around the resume virtues more than the eulogy ones. Public conversation is. 2, the self-help tips in magazines, the non-fictional bestsellers. Most of us have clearer strategies for how to achieve career success than how we do to develop a profound character. One book that helped me think about these 2 sets of virtues is The Lonely Man of Faith, which was written by Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, apologize for the pronunciation, in 1965. Soloveitchik noted that there are 2 accounts of creation in Genesis and argued that these represent the 2 opposing sides of our nature, which he called Adam 1 and Adam 2. Modernizing Soloveitchik's categories a bit, we could say that Adam 1 is the career-oriented, ambitious side of our nature. Adam 1, the external, resume Adam. Adam 1 wants to build, create, produce, and discover things. He wants to have high status and win victories. Adam 2 is the internal Adam. Adam 2 wants to embody certain moral qualities. Adam 2 wants to have a serene inner character, a quiet but solid sense of right and wrong, not only to do good, but to be good. Adam 2 wants to love intimately, to sacrifice self in the service of others, to live in obedience to transcendent truth, to have a cohesive inner soul that honors creation and one's own possibilities. Last paragraph I'm going to read to you. While Adam 1 wants to conquer the world, Adam 2 wants to obey a calling to serve the world. Adam 1 is creative and savors his own accomplishments. Adam 2 sometimes renounces worldly success and status for the sake of some sacred purpose. While Adam 1 asks how things work, Adam 2 asks why things exist. And ultimately, what are we here for? While Adam 1 wants to venture forth, Adam 2 wants to return to his roots and savor the warmth of a family meal. While Adam's 1 motto is success, Adam 2 experiences life as a moral drama. His motto is charity, love, and redemption. So, one of the things that we do in our January call every year is we ask people to plan out what they're out to accomplish, what they're out to achieve this year. And so, you work with yourself and your chapter, and, how many letters are we going to get, and how many people are we going to add to our chapter, and, all those kinds of things. I want to add to that the development of character, and that's one of the things that we should be at work on. I think sometimes we think some people are people of great character, and there's some people that maybe aren't as great a character, or maybe we are or not. But we don't think about it as something that we could work on. Like you exercise because you want to keep your body healthy. Well, I want to suggest that working on the issue of character, what are we doing this year to develop ourselves, to be the kind of people that we need to be, big enough to be an answer for this challenge. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes at your table, and I'm going to want to ask you to just answer at your table, what could you do to be working on character? This is really, people don't usually ask you this question, so hopefully some of the things other people will say will provoke your own thinking. But if we were to add, one of the things that we're at work on this year is expanding our own sense of character. What might you do to be at work on that? Okay, so you only have a total of 5 minutes for the whole table, so please make sure everybody gets a chance to go for a minute. Okay, excellent. Please thank the people at your table and just wrap that up. So please say thank you to the people at your table. Okay, very nice. Thank you so much. Oh. This book is called The Road to Character. And you'll see that from my own notes, I haven't made notes of many pages, that there are things that I was interested in. Only about 100. The Road to Character by David Brooks. The Road. Oh, the Rabbi. Oh, jeez. Okay. His book is called The Lonely Man of Faith, Rabbi Joseph Soloveichtchik. Yeah, pronounced Reynolds. Soloveichtchik. Yep, thank you. It's Lonely Man of Faith is the other one, and this one is The Road to Character. And if you decide to read The Road of Character, skip the first chapter and then read the other ones, because the first one is the hardest to read. Then come back when you realize there's enough meat in what you're going to read. Okay. Thank you, Mark Tabbert, again. So if you've been around the organization for some time, you know that one of the things that I did before I came to work here is I used to work to improve the effectiveness and productivity of top-level scientists and engineers at places like Boeing and NASA. And we used to do workshops with them, and we found to work in a way that had a lasting impact, that actually held up over time, that was meaningful for them, we had to work on 3 levels. We needed to give them new tools. We needed to give them new habits so that their tools would become incorporated. You know, it wasn't just enough to say, do this instead of this. You had to convince them to keep practicing it for some time so that they would actually begin to incorporate new tools. But we worked on a third level, which was the context or culture in which they worked. And that was the actually only thing that mattered. You had to give people tools because they wouldn't have any benefit of value if you didn't say, do this instead of this. You know, you have to manage those people's perception in addition to what you're doing when you work with them. So it wasn't that the tools weren't useful, they were. But the thing that was dramatically impactful was the culture in which they worked. And we had to work on that in two levels. So I'll just give you an example at Boeing. When I was at Boeing, they were working on a new plane that had a new kind of body that was lighter, and so it could use less fuel and fly faster and everything like that. And they promised that it was going to be out on July 1st. I was working with hundreds of engineers throughout the Puget Sound area, and every one of them knew that the plane was going to come out a year later than what Boeing had promised to the public. So if you work in a culture where you know the public promises this, but you know it's nonsense, it creates a certain kind of, atmosphere for how you relate to your own promises, your own deadlines, etc. So there's one thing we would do is identify if there were debilitating cultures inside the organization. But that was actually insignificant in the face of actually the culture of work itself. And that is, most people, it's not the things people say out loud, but it's the things that everybody knows about work that make it so, quote, bad. So for instance, it's not unusual for you to run into people and you say to them, how are you doing? And they say to you, it's Monday. Right? Now, what they don't say out loud is, work stinks. What they say is, it's Monday, and it's implied that work stinks. Right? Or you see them and they say, it's Friday. Now, they don't say the torture's over for the weekend, but it's what's implied. So if you actually begin to examine what's unsaid but makes up the culture for work, it for most people is not as, inspiring and rejuvenating as it could be. There was a book that came out in the 80s called Megatrends. Anybody remember all the way back then? Well, anyway, one of the things the authors observed was, at that point, people were spending 80% of their life at work, which is probably even worse now. And they didn't just mean the time at work, but they mean thinking about work, getting ready for work, bringing work home. The only problem was that people were spending the majority of their life at work, but they expected to get everything that was meaningful, valuable, important in their life from the time away from work. So that the weekends, the vacations, the holiday is what was going to fulfill people, but they were spending the majority of their life in the thing that wasn't going to fulfill them. So really, our job was to convince them that their work could be fulfilling, could be meaningful. And you can imagine that if people found more meaning, more personal impact, were more enriched by work, that might enhance their productivity. Okay, so how does that apply to us? How that applies to us is what we call the Ccl Way is absolutely essential to what we do. The looking for what is most generous in the people that we speak with, particularly if we don't agree with them. Of looking for what we have in common with them. Of challenging ourselves in our own assumptions that the way we see it is not the only way to see it. So it's not just what we do, it's how we do it is as important as what we do. So what I want to do is just share with you what that impact of the Ccl culture had on a handful of people who came to last year's conference. I want to start with a few of the young people who wrote us notes after they came. This is Piper Christian. She's a high school student. She says, never I found an organization that gave me such confidence that I can change the world. As I learned more about Ccl during the conference, I was impressed by its philosophy and structure. Its emphasis on organization, punctuality, and delegating tasks made it far more efficient than any of the organization I've been a part of. But what made the Ccl stand out more than anything was its culture of inclusivity and respect. The lobbying meetings were so uplifting. For the first time in my life, I watched and participated in a civil, friendly discussion between Republicans and Democrats who searched for shared values and strived for collaboration. Before this experience, I viewed Congress as a bickering political dead end. I was so inspired by these positive interactions between our lobbyists and staffers that I'm now considering running for office someday. Beyond the lobbying meetings, I felt this culture of inclusivity extended to me personally. Because I'm so young, I'm sometimes not felt taken seriously. But at the conference, I was treated as though my age and unique point of view were actually an asset to the organization. Her brother came with her. Here's what he said. He's a college student. I found myself jaw-dropped at how inclusive this battle has become. However, what inspired me most was feeling an important transition, one from fighting against something to fighting for something. The CCL model, finding common ground and common values with others, has greatly expanded my ability to be a part of this fight. More and more, I am seeing the importance of fighting for the creation of political will, for the inclusion of more inclusion of more voices in this battle, and ultimately for a livable world. And this is finally a junior high school student. I never knew that ordinary people could wield so much power. I'd always thought that people who have big roles in our government were the only people who could bring about change. But this experience has taught me that anyone can change the world if they try hard enough. Coming away from this experience, I realized that I might have just helped change the world for the better, and that gives me hope that I can continue to do that in the future. Okay. Now how many of you were at the conference last year? Okay, so we had 2 members of Congress come to our reception, 2 members of the Climate Solutions Caucus. One was Ileana Rostlaitinen, and here's what she said. She says, I'm a virgin to these global climate change events. I had no idea these events were fun. She told us actually she would have come years earlier if she knew she was going to have fun. She says, Dexter and I have 3 grandkids. The 4th one is coming tomorrow. They have made me really pay attention to our planet and to the damage that we are doing to it and how we can save it for kids and grandkids. Hold on one second. She was a hoot, just so you know. This isn't on the quote, but when the other member of Congress was up there talking, she and I were standing behind the stage right here, and I said to her, so Ileana, what are you drinking there? And she says, Coke with a little bit of rum. She says, it tastes really good. Okay, and then here's what Ted Deutsch said. Ted Deutsch, remember, is the chairman of the Climate Solutions Caucus. And so he was the one where he was in line with Jay at one of the congressional cafeterias waiting in line to get lunch. They struck up a conversation. Ted Deutsch agreed he would be the Democratic co-chair of the Climate Solutions Caucus, and then it was 3 years of getting Carlos Corbello to get it, and now we've got 10 Democrats, 10 Republicans. Ted Deutsch says, it's through your hard work that we've been able to bring members together from both sides of the aisle. We've been able to change the conversation from burden to opportunity and from fear to hope and from obstruction to action. Our work so far and our plans to make climate solutions a priority in Congress are wholly dependent, and I feel really good about what I'm about to say given what I've seen so far. Our success is wholly dependent upon your energy, your passion, and your commitment. It is only through your continued effort that this caucus and our nation can meet the many challenges that climate change presents. I look forward to joining you in that effort. I look forward to expanding this movement. I look forward to showing that the U.S. Congress is not broken beyond repair. That's our job with these guys. I look forward to turning climate solutions into law and policy that will drive a sustainable future for us, for our future, and for our planet. Okay, so what we do matters, but the way we go about doing it matters also. So I think that one of the things that we can always kind of reconstitute, rebuild, redesign when we're together is that thing called the Ccl Way. You know, it makes me a little bit uncomfortable having a physicist in front of me, but there's something I have done some studying on, which is the second law of thermodynamics, which has something to do with called entropy. And entropy essentially says things are falling apart all the time. It's kind of like, you know, when you put a drop of cream in your coffee, they kind of tend towards sameness. They don't stay distinct. And we'll make sure the physicists can't say if I'm right or not. Close enough? All right. But I think the Ccl way is that way. It's something we have to be attending to. We have to be putting it in all the time. We have to be at work on it. I think the tendency is to fall towards reaction, to, you know, respond to our emotions, to get too excited, to get too angry. And remember that we have set out something that is distinct and is having a profound impact on people, not just people in Congress, but people who come in touch with us. So I'm going to turn things back over to our organizers, and I just personally want to thank you for how remarkable these 2 days have been for me. It's been a rough patch since November, and it sure makes it a lot easier getting a couple days with you. So thank you for everything you're doing, and thank you for being here. Yeah.